They told her she was invisible. That was their first mistake. Estate security ledgers from Blackwood Manor, sealed for nearly 200 years, have finally been opened, and what they reveal is a scandal that threatened to bring down one of England's most powerful families. According to these official archives, what happened next exposed a decades-long conspiracy of greed and control that had been hiding in plain sight. But before we get to the shocking public confrontation that changed everything, you need to understand what the young Duke discovered in his late father's private study. It was a secret that gave a powerless kitchen maid the one thing she needed: leverage. The air in the grand library of Blackwood Manor, in the heart of Wiltshire, was thick with the scent of old leather and beeswax, a scent Alara once found comforting. Now it felt like a tomb. It was the autumn of 1822, a season of decay, and she felt her own hopes withering on the vine. She was polishing the silver inkwell on the late Duke's massive oak desk, her movements practiced and silent, when the new Duke, Alistair, entered. He didn't notice her at first. This was her world, a life lived in the margins, defined by service and invisibility. But then he swore under his breath, a sharp, frustrated sound, and shook his hand. A thin line of crimson welled up from a gash on his palm, a casualty of a rebellious letter opener. "Your Grace," Alara said, her voice barely a whisper. She couldn't help it. Instinct took over. She set down her cloth and moved toward him. "You're bleeding." Alistair looked up, truly seeing her for the first time, not as a part of the furniture, but as a person. He saw clear, intelligent eyes the color of autumn honey, and hands that, though chapped from work, moved with a quiet confidence. "It's nothing," he said, wrapping a handkerchief around the wound. "Forgive me, Your Grace, but that will fester if it isn't cleaned properly," she said, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. "My mother was an herbalist. She taught me." Before he could protest, she was gone, returning moments later with a small bowl of warmed water, clean linen, and a poultice of crushed yarrow leaves she kept for the kitchen staff's frequent burns and cuts. Her touch was gentle but firm as she cleaned the wound. The library was silent save for the crackle of the fire. In that quiet space, an invisible barrier between them dissolved. He wasn't the Duke of Blackwood, and she wasn't a maid. They were just a man with a wound and a woman who knew how to heal it. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice low. "Alara," she replied, not adding the surname she rarely used. "Thank you, Alara." That was how it began, not with a stolen glance across a ballroom, but with a simple act of kindness in a silent library. According to the meticulous household logs kept by the head housekeeper, Mrs. Gable, this was the first of 17 secret meetings over the next 6 weeks. These meetings became the one patch of solid ground in Alistair's suffocating life. Have you ever felt trapped by the expectations of others? You're not alone. For Alistair, the title of Duke was a gilded cage, and his mother, the Dowager Duchess Beatrice, was the unwavering gatekeeper. Beatrice was a woman forged in the crucible of aristocratic duty. According to Dr. Alistair Finch, a social historian at Cambridge University specializing in 19th century peerage, for a woman of Beatrice's station, the family's legacy was not just a priority, it was a religion. Any threat to that legacy, especially from an unsuitable match, was seen as a heresy that had to be stamped out. Her obsession with control was rooted in family tragedy. Her own younger brother had married an artist's daughter for love, and society had systematically dismantled him. Parish records from the 1810s confirm his financial ruin and early death. Beatrice had vowed it would never happen again. She watched her son with an eagle's eye, and she did not like what she saw. The furtive conversations in the library, the shared book of poetry left on a conservatory bench, the way Alistair's mood lifted after a brief exchange with a certain maid. Servants talked, and what they said, whispered in the back corridors, eventually reached the Duchess's ears. The confrontation came on a Tuesday. "You will end this foolishness," Beatrice stated, her voice as cold and sharp as the November wind, rattling the windows of her private sitting room. She didn't need to specify what this was. Alistair stood his ground. "I find her company stimulating. She's intelligent and kind. Is that a crime?" "It is a liability," Beatrice snapped. "You are the Duke of Blackwood. You will marry Lady Anne Milton. The arrangements are nearly complete. This dalliance with a kitchen maid puts everything at risk." You think I don't know what this is? It's a passing infatuation. You will get over it. And if it isn't, Alistair challenged, his voice dangerously quiet, what if it's the first real thing I've felt in my entire life? Beatrice's face hardened into a mask of implacable resolve. Then I will remove the distraction. If you do not end all contact with the girl by the end of the week, I will dismiss her, without a reference. The threat hung in the air, potent and cruel. In 1822, a servant dismissed without a reference was socially and economically destroyed. No respectable house would ever employ her. It was a one-way ticket to the workhouse or the streets. We've all faced moments where doing the right thing meant risking someone else's entire future. This was Alistair's. But what the Duchess didn't know was that Alistair had already started to uncover a different, more tangible secret. Driven by a newfound desire to understand the estate he was supposed to command, he'd begun auditing his late father's private ledgers. Estate documents dated from 1815 to 1821, preserved in the Wiltshire County Archives, show a series of irregularities. There were inconsistencies. Funds moved to accounts he didn't recognize. His mother had managed the estate's finances since his father's passing, and she was known for her meticulous attention to detail. These were not errors. They were deliberate. Pay attention to this detail. It becomes crucial later. He found the truth locked in a small, unassuming strongbox in his father's study. The solicitor's investigation report, filed after his father's death, laid it all bare. His father's will contained a secret codicil. It established a substantial trust fund, the Blackwood Stewardship Fund, for the welfare and retirement of the estate's long-serving staff. The fund was to be managed by the acting duke. His father, it seemed, had a conscience. But a private letter from the family solicitor, also in the box, revealed the shocking truth. At the Duchess's insistence, the existence of the fund was concealed. For 3 years, she had been redirecting the interest from that fund to cover her own speculative investments, which had soured. It wasn't just a moral failure, it was fraud. He now held a weapon. He could expose her, ruin her. But in doing so, he would create a scandal that would tarnish the family name forever. What would you do in this situation? Expose the lie to save the woman you love, even if it means destroying your own mother? He confronted Alara in the misty quiet of the old chapel that night, a place where the weight of history felt almost holy. He told her everything, his mother's threat, the stolen fund, the impossible choice he faced. Alara's face was pale in the candlelight. "Then you must let me go," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I will not be the cause of your family's ruin." "There will be no ruin," Alistair said, his voice raw with a desperate certainty. "Only a reckoning. She has threatened your future to control mine. She has stolen from the very people whose loyalty she commands. This is not about love versus duty anymore, Alara. This is about justice. What can we do?" Alistair took her hands. They were trembling. "The annual governor's charity ball is in 10 days. The entire county, every noble family will be there. My mother expects me to announce my engagement to Lady Anne. She believes she has won." He paused, his eyes locking onto hers. "She is mistaken. I will not expose her crime, but I will use the knowledge of it to secure our future. I will make a public declaration so clear, so final, that she will have no choice but to accept it." He dropped to one knee on the cold stone floor. "Alara, she believes you are my weakness. I want to show the world that you are my strength. Will you marry me?" The Duchess Beatrice's final warning was delivered in the echoing grandeur of the ballroom antechamber, just moments before they were to make their entrance. She had cornered Alistair, her face a mask of cold fury. Alara stood a few feet away, clad in a simple but elegant gown of deep emerald green, alone from a sympathetic Mrs. Gable. She felt the eyes of every passing lord and lady scorch her skin. "You will never marry my son," the Duchess vowed, her voice a low, venomous hiss meant only for Alara to hear. "I will see you in the gutter before I see you with the Blackwood ring on your finger. This is your last chance. Walk away, and I will give you a generous reference. Stay, and I will personally destroy you." Alara felt her courage falter. This powerful, ruthless woman would not stop. She looked at Alistair, ready to break, ready to run. But Alistair simply met his mother's gaze with a look of profound pity. "You are right about one thing, Mother," he said, his voice calm and clear. "A choice will be made tonight." He then offered his arm to Alara, turning his back on his stunned mother, and led her into the glittering ballroom. A hush fell over the assembly. The Duke of Blackwood was meant to be with Lady Anne Milton. Instead, he was on the arm of a woman no one recognized. A woman who held her head high with a desperate, fragile grace. Historical records from the royal archives show that inheritance disputes and social scandals in the 1820s were often brutal, drawn-out affairs. Alistair knew he had only one chance to bypass the whispers and legal challenges, and it had to be now. He led Alara to the center of the room, near the orchestra's dais, and raised a hand for silence. The music trailed off. 200 conversations died. Every eye in Wiltshire society was on them. "My lords, ladies, esteemed guests," Alistair began, his voice ringing with an authority no one had ever heard from him before. "For too long, Blackwood Manor has been managed under a shadow of secrecy. I stand here tonight to bring one of those secrets into the light." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Duchess, standing near the entrance, went rigid. "My father, the late Duke," Alistair continued, "was a man who believed in honoring loyalty. In his last will and testament, he created the Blackwood Stewardship Fund, a trust dedicated to the welfare of our staff, to whom we owe so much. For reasons of complex estate management, the existence of this fund was not made public." He chose his words carefully, offering his mother a thread of dignity she did not deserve. "Tonight, I am rectifying that. I am pleased to announce that the fund will be reinstated, its assets fully accounted for, and its mission expanded. We will ensure that the people who dedicate their lives to Blackwood are cared for with the security and respect they have earned." This was the first shockwave. He had just publicly announced the existence of the money his mother had hidden. To challenge him would be to admit her own crime. She was trapped. You could see the checkmate settle on her face. Anyone who stood up to those in power knows the terror and triumph of that moment. Alistair let the implications settle in the silent room. He had established his authority, his commitment to responsible governance, and his financial transparency. He was not a foolish boy acting on infatuation. He was a duke acting on principle. And then he turned to Alara. In front of his entire family, his stunned mother, and the breathless aristocracy, he dropped to one knee. The collective gasp was audible. "But my duty to Blackwood is not limited to its finances," he said, his voice now softer, meant for her but heard by all. "It is also a duty to its heart. Alara, you have shown me what true character is. You have more integrity in your little finger than many in this room have in their entire lineage. You taught me that a person's worth is not determined by their birth, but by their compassion and their courage." He took her hand and she was no longer trembling. "My mother, the Duchess, has vowed that you will never marry me." He looked directly at Beatrice, whose face was a ruin of disbelief and fury. "She is wrong." He held Alara's gaze. "Alara, would you do me the profound honor of becoming my wife, my Duchess, my partner in building a better future for Blackwood?" For a long moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Alara looked from Alistair's hopeful face to the sea of shocked and hostile aristocrats, and then to the Duchess, who looked utterly defeated. This was it, the moment of no return. Dignity isn't given, it's claimed. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I will." The aftermath was not a fairy tale. It was a slow, difficult rebuilding. Royal Archives data shows that social ostracism was a real and powerful weapon. The Blackwoods were cut from guest lists across London for the better part of a year. Lord Milton, Lady Anne's father, withdrew a significant investment, causing a temporary financial strain. But the story of the Stewardship Fund, an act of almost unheard of financial transparency, earned Alistair a different kind of respect among a younger, more forward-thinking set. The Duchess did not attend the wedding. She retreated to the family's dower house in a self-imposed exile. It was 6 months before she finally requested to see her son and his new wife. Alara, now the Duchess of Blackwood, found her tending a small, neglected rose garden. Beatrice did not apologize, not in words, but she offered Alara a cutting from a rare white rose bush. "This was my mother's," she said, her voice tight. "It's a resilient bloom. It survives harsh winters." It was the closest she could come to offering peace. Alara and Alistair focused their energy inward, transforming the estate. Ilara's knowledge of botany led to the restoration of the manor's historic gardens, becoming a model for sustainable stewardship. They used the stewardship fund to establish scholarships for the children of their staff, championing education access and youth literacy. Their leadership was defined by a quiet commitment to public service and family wellness, earning them a deep well of community trust among their tenants. They supported local craftsmanship and historical preservation, slowly rewriting the meaning of the Blackwood legacy. One evening, a year after their wedding, a letter arrived for the Dowager Duchess. It bore an Italian postmark. Alistair, who brought it to her, noticed a tremor in her hands as she took it. She never spoke of its contents, but the staff noted that she began spending more time in the music room, playing old, half-forgotten sonatas. The quietest voices often carry the truths people fear most. And in that music, there was a story of a second chance, a mystery just beginning to unfold. Their revolution was complete, but the healing for everyone was a work in progress. If this story of defiance shocks you, hit like to help spread this untold history. Share this with someone who needs to know that courage can rewrite any story, and subscribe for more historical revelations like this. The truth matters.